Gemara. Today's Gemara is Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph. We're talking about the obligations, the 7 obligations that a woman has for her husband. And then we read about if she brought in 1 shivcha, she brought in 2, she brought in 3, the number of obligations get reduced. Okay, says the Gemara here, about 6 lines on top of the page. Bodaklon Rav Huna bar Chinna. Amar Rav Huna said that it once happened that Bodaklon Rav Huna bar Chinna. Rav Huna bar Chinna once tested us. And this is the question that he asked us. He wanted us to think. He asked us, he aimeres, she says, lahanik, I want to nurse my child. But the husband says, Shaloi lahanik, I don't want you to nurse her. The reason why he doesn't want her to nurse is because he thinks that this is going to make her look old and age quicker. He doesn't want her to nurse. The din is shame him low. We listen to her because tzara di doho. It's painful sometimes if she doesn't nurse, the milk builds up and it's painful. So it's her prerogative. What happens? He says, I want you to nurse the child. Maybe it's beneficial for the child, but she says, she says, I don't want to nurse the child. Either because of beauty or because maybe she finds it painful to nurse. Now, what happens then? So, if let's say in her family, nobody nurses the child, they always get wet nurses, then Shaimila, they listen to her. My question is, for her family, it's common to nurse, but the husband's family, they don't nurse. Yet it's the husband, the husband says, let's nurse, and she says, no, I don't want to. But in their families, it's precisely the opposite. What happens at my Basa Didei and do go after his family, and his family does not nurse. A Basa Didei then you go after her family, and they do nurse. And we learned as follows: not nursing means that you're affluent, that you can afford to hire a wet nurse, and obviously cannot afford to hire a wet nurse. So what happens then? So, and Rabbi Huna is telling over the story, he says, and we resolved it from the following, because it says, we had it previously, Oile Imai, for example, if he's wealthy and she isn't, she rises with him, so if his family doesn't nurse, and therefore she can go with him and say, look, you can afford a wet nurse, the Eina Yered is Imai. But if she comes from a wealthy family and he goes down, he start out wealthy, then becomes poor, she does not have to go down with him. He has to maintain that certain level that he had. He does not go down with him, and therefore she does not have to nurse. Because he goes up with him, does not go down with him. So she said, I want to hire a witness, he has to. How do I know that? He bu'ula's ball. It says in the pasuk, and the expression is regarding when she has relations, it says he bu'ula's ball, that she's a bu'ula's regarding Sarah, Abimelech was told that she's a bu'ula's ball. What kind of expression is bu'ula's ball? Ba'ali asay shabal, that she rises with a husband. Loibi does well. She does not go down with a husband. Rabbi Loza says Mahacha from the following pasuk. Same idea. It says he haisa aim kol chai. Regarding Chava, we call Chava because she's the mother of all living. So we say l'chaim nitna l'tzaditna. The mother is there to give life and not for pain. So if she finds it painful to nurse, that she has prerogative to say, I don't want to nurse. Okay, then we start learning in the Mishnah that if she brings in 1 shivcha, then a number of duties are reduced. If she brings in 2 shivchas, a couple more are reduced. She brings in 3, then all 7 are reduced. And she brings in 4, they can sit on the chair and not even do the small little things. So the Gemara wants to know why, if you bring in 1 shivcha, aren't all 7 reduced straight away? Says the Gemara, 4 duties are reduced. We said like baking, grinding, but the rest of the activity she still has to do. Let her say to her, look, it used to be, you had one woman, me, doing all 7 activities. Now we have another woman in my place, and she'll do all 7 activities. Why does she still have to do why does she still have certain obligations? Says the Gemara, he tells her, before we were 2 people. So now we are 3 people. 3 people, therefore each activity takes more time. And that's why. Let's say she's going to work for herself and for me, says the husband to the wife. Who's going to work for you? In other words, 3 people now. 3 people will need more activity. Therefore, 4 are reduced, are taken away. We still have eliminated, but we still have 3 duties left. Stein, you bring 2 maids, Two more duties are removed. She doesn't have to cook, nor does she have to be a wet nurse. They just have to work on nurse a child. Hashar Avdi, she still has to do the other activity. Even Tamalay, let her say to him, I brought you a second woman, a second maid. We're talking about she's coming out of her money. The Torchol, the D, and therefore, this is what happens. They have two women now. One will work for you and for herself. The other one will work for herself and for me. So we're all taken care of. Why do I have to do any duties? Why have to do any duties at all? So he says, you know why? He says to her, now that we have more people in the household, people tend to gravitate to our house, and we can have two kinds of guests. Kami orchei uparchai. Our guests, our long-term guests and our short-term guests. Parchai people fly away. They come for the night, and orchim can be here for a week or for a month. Rashi says sometimes guests come in and move in for a month. And parchai are those who come in, travelers who come in just for the night. Man Tarach, who's going to work for them? So it's clear here that when you have guests, it's the wife who has obligations to take care of the guest. Shalosh, these are all part of the obligations in return for what the husband does to the wife. This is what she does back, contributes to the marriage. Shalosh, you have three maids. She doesn't even have to do the last activity of making the bed. But it's a small little mundane thing she still does until you have four. The Tame Malay, why can't you say now you have three maids? I just brought your third maid. You claim that two maids are not enough because we have all these guests. Okay, I brought your third maid. All the guests now taken care of. The reason is, he says to her, the more people milling about the house, the more people gravitate to our house, and if we have more guests, and therefore we still don't have enough. So I feel like if we have four maids, why do we say then she can sit back and do nothing, go to Tanakamba, but to attract even more people? So Moran says, once you have four maids, Arba, keeping the official land, since you have so many maids, if one is not doing so much work, they'll turn and help the others. So somehow or another, there's a multiple of four, they start to work together and in teamwork. And in teamwork, you can accomplish much more than if you did it work individually. He actually says she doesn't have to physically bring in all of these maids. You brought enough money to dowry that you're capable of paying for all these maids, even though physically she did not bring these maids in. Even though she's not bringing maids in, it's good enough. The fact that you have the potential of being maids in, it relieves her from all of these duties. Tana, we learn the makes no difference whether she actually brought the maids in from her dowry or whether she didn't have money to the dowry, but she works hard and she scrimped the money. The husband said, okay, this money is for you, spending money, whatever it is. She saves the money instead of using it for herself, and now she has enough money that she can hire these maids, and that's enough for her to relieve her from all of these duties. Others say that actually means that the husband was rich, and he can afford it. That's good enough. Now, till now, we've been learning that it's she's the one who has to hire the maids in order for her to be relieved from her duties. Taisha brings one opinion that this last few words should tzimtzum doesn't mean that she's tzimtzum, that she can scrimp or she was reduced her expenses, but rather save money. But rather it means should tzimtzum loy, that he has the money. And the word is not tzimtzum, but rather shematzaloi. If the husband is wealthy, she can say to the husband, hire the maids and leave me alone. Okay. For the Gemara. Sorry, skipped over. Arba Yosef, because therefore she sits in the chair. Even though we say that watch she sits in the chair, doesn't have to do anything, according to the Tanakhama. Remember, the Mishnah had other opinions. Rabbi Lezer, who says that no matter how many maids you have, you still have to give her to do some work. She has to make the wool, because otherwise, if she has nothing to do all day, who knows what it's going to lead to? And you have Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, who said that if you basically say, doesn't want his wife to do any work at all, she can go crazy and he has to let her go. So the four maids, sits in the chair. But it means she does nothing? No. She does things of endearment. Like she pours a drink, prepares a drink. She makes the bed, and Taisa already said before that this is not the same making the bed as an al-mishta, which is hard work. This is just basically putting a cover on it. So some terms are dim that shows that there's intimacy there. She washes her hands, his hands, feet, and face and feet. Anything which anything that a woman does for her husband and she has to do for her husband generally. These are part of the obligations. The exception is mizigas, the following things that a wife, while they're in the state of need, cannot do for her husband is basically mixing the drink and then pouring it, giving it to him, because this is a sign of intimacy. As a nida, anything which is a sign of intimacy, we don't in any way to place a stumbling block for the husband, so therefore we tell her not to do it. But submit to making the bed, when we say that while she's a nida, she shouldn't make the bed, it's only in front of the husband standing there. So it doesn't really matter. So the Gemara continues along that theme. So Shmuel, what did Shmuel do? Shmuel had his wife while she was needed to make a shini, to make a change, and by using her left hand instead of her right hand, by making that change, so therefore they'll remember that she's a nida, and therefore nothing is going to happen, anything untoward. What exactly means with the left hand, whether it means the preparing or just the serving, okay, is a different opinion of Shainim. Abaye what he did was, instead of placing it in her hand, placed it on her pillow. And Rava, I put the cup on top of a jug, which is not the normal place to place a cup. Rava Abesadia put it on the bed, and Papa Asasa on a chair, and put it on a chair. So therefore, they all made a shini, and this way there will be a reminder that she's a nida and she shouldn't do it. Rashi says an interesting thing. Rashi says over here with that, there's two periods of a nida. There's while she's menstruating, and then there's the 7 clean days. And Rashi says we're talking about the 7 clean days, as if to say during the days that she's menstruating, he's also not a shini is not going to be good enough. It's only the 7 clean days that we allow the shini. And the Olam Farshim tried to understand. Taisa right here tries to understand, as long as she doesn't go to mikvah, it's ma'atayra. What's the difference while she's menstruating or the 7 clean days? So Taisa says a fascinating thing. In the olden days, remember today we're learning more nidim, we learned to say that the Rosh Hashanah took upon themselves, no matter what they see, they'll always say maybe it's a nidim, maybe it's not a nidim, it's just a zava, and therefore you have to wait till the blood stops, and then menstruating, and then you start counting 7 clean days. We're very machmir. In the old days, what they used to do was, after the first 7 days, she would go to the mikveh, because in all probability she's just a nida, and a nida, even if you're menstruating the entire time, come the end of 7 days, you do a hefsek tara, you stop bleeding, you go to the mikveh. So they would go to the mikveh in the middle, and then continue counting the 7 clean days. And therefore, once she went to so then the 7 clean days are really only midrabanan and chumrah, and that's what Rashi means, that they're more lenient the 7 clean days. But today it's one long stretch, and therefore it makes no difference being the end. And those are also machlekes rishonim, whether it's only limited to pouring a cup or serving anything. Is it only a cup of wine that you don't want him to serve, but anything else you can serve directly into his hand? Or it means that anything you shouldn't place in his hand, whether it's food or anything else. And something more further. Regarding etiquette, if you have somebody waiting on you and they're eating from you, when should they eat? Before you, after you? How's it work? And what do you have to give it to eat? So interesting, just how we deal with a waiter. Everything the waiter can wait till after the meal, except meat and wine. If there's meat and wine, you have to give him to eat before he starts serving the meal, because he is hungry and he watches everybody eat meat and wine, and it causes, the aroma and everything else will cause him pain, that he's being denied to eat. Chiza says fatty meat and old wine, that specifically makes him even hungry. Fatty meat entire year makes him hungry. Yayin yosha, but old wine, but kuvas tamas only in the summer. That's when the odor or the fragrance of the wine is much stronger, and the heat of the day is causes this person who really is, who has this craving for wine, causes them all kinds of pain. They brought him tafshila da'adi, they brought him some mushroom, suddenly cooked with different kinds of mushroom and truffles. I saw we loved the Yoav leave, and I was watching them giving somebody else, but they wouldn't have given me some of that. Istakni. I would have endangered myself because I had such a craving for it. I would have some kind of a sickness. I would have came to come in. I was not standing for Rav but I used to they brought him Gargilida the lift, they brought him some kind of a turn of the challah dipped in vinegar. We loved the Yoav leave, wouldn't have given me Istakni. I would have been endangered. So it wasn't hungry. Rav Ashi was a very wealthy man. We had the Gemara getting the trade of Makamechet since from Rabbi Yehuda Nasi till Rav Ashi, wasn't anyone like them. So money wasn't a shortage here. It's just the craving when you see the food and I guess you're a little hungry, what it can do to you. Rav Papa says, another very rich man, even just a fatty date, it also could do the same, have the same effect. If you're not participating, you're hungry and you're watching, that craving can cause you danger. The rule is cold Isla, anything that has a nice fragrance. Isla Q has some sharpness to it, can cause you harm. Avua Bar'i, Uminyamin Bar'i. There were two people. Obviously, they were brothers. Avu, the son of E, and Minyamin, the son of E. Had Sofi Mikomina Mina. One of them used to give the waiter to eat from every single food that they were going to bring to the table. He allowed the waiter to eat from it. And on the Chad, the other one, Sofi Michad Mina, only gave him one from one of the dishes, told him choose whichever dish you want, and he let him fill himself so he wasn't hungry anymore. Mar, the first one, Mishtoi Elio Bahadei. Elio would continue to frequent him because of his generosity, but Mar, the one who only gave him one dish, Loi Mishto Elio Bahadei. Elio stopped coming to it because it wasn't right. But the waiter has to serve all these dishes and watch everyone else enjoying it, and he can't. This is just etiquette. Hanutata Chassidim, there were these two Chassidim, Amila, and others say we even know who they were. Rav Mori and Pinchas Bnei Rav Chizda. Rav Mori and Pinchas, the children of Chizda, the brother of Rav. Mar Kodim Sofi, one of them gave the shamash to eat before he even ate himself. Umar Ma'achas Sofi, and the other one would wait to first serve everybody, and then right away you can eat yourself. But first serve everybody. Now sometimes there were a lot of guests. The Kodim Sofi, the one who gave the shamash to eat before he even ate himself, the master of the house, Mishnah Elio, Mishnah Elio, were frequent. The Ma'achas Sofi, the one who used to delay, he told him first, put everyone's dishes down, then you can sit down in the kitchen and eat. So you see clearly from here, Elio used to have a connection with a lot of different Amoraim and learn with them. The Chidor writes in Hilchot Tefillin that he found like Savyad or the Rashba, that when the Gemara says Elio, this is not Elio Hanav. This was a very special teacher who was a big Talmid Chacham who lived a very long life. And that's the Elio the Gemara talks about all the time when it says Elio met. This one is Elio met, that one, not Elio Hanav. Others disagree, they say it's always Elio Hanav. Amema the Mazut Rav Ashi, he wants to tell an interesting story. We don't, in the Gemara generally, we don't find stories of miracles. We even have an Erev in the whole story there where he knew the guy's name and he faces it, tries to say, what's a miracle? He just, threw a good guess. Here we see another story where I might have made a miracle. Amema or Mazut Rav Ashi, these are close friends. We find them many times going together, driving together. Having Koyosra, they were once sitting at Pisach. The one sitting at the entrance of the place of the king called Agzer Malka, and Rashi says he was some king of Paras, of Persia, and Cholif v'Azel Atruna the Malka, and they were passing by right in front of them the food that was suitable for the king. Chazir Rav Ashi Mazutra. Rav Ashi noticed that Mazutra, the Chiver Ape, he noticed that Mazutra face was becoming blas, was becoming all pale. In other words, had such a strong urge, a strong craving for that food. Now, the food l'chayda would have been treif, and it would have been treif. Then why would he even have an urge for that kind of food? It should be so outside of his, not only access, but outside of his interests. Unless this particular food was some kind of a vegetable, something that wasn't really treif at all. As Gemara will later talk about a pomegranate. So it must have been something that wasn't something that's treif. And he saw that Amei became all pale. Shako be'etz be'isi. Ashi put his finger into the food that's going directly to the king, and he took a little piece, and he placed it in his mouth. He gave it to Mazutra to eat. Amalei. So the waiter said, "Of Sada to the Sudas the Malka, you just ruined the food to the king. No king will eat that." From food that some peasant, in their eyes, put the finger into the food, or anybody did. They said, Ravashi, my Tabarachi. They had enough respect for him. They asked him, why did you do that? Amalu. So Ravashi said, man, Tabarachi, Apostle, the Michael, the Malko, whoever did it, ruined the food for the king as it is. That was the chef who prepared it. He prepared terrible food. Amalu, why are you saying that? We checked everything. Amalu, he said, Dabaracha Chazoiba. So Dabaracha can either be pork, but for the grave is not a problem. Dabaracha here means saras. I saw leprosy. Bodku, they searched. Ashcher, they couldn't find. Shakal, he took the finger of the waiter or the policeman, whoever was expecting it. Anachale, he placed it on top of a part of the food, so he was holding the guy's finger. Hambalei, and Ravashi said to them, Ochami Badiktu, did you check this region over here? Bodku, they checked. Ashcher, and they found. Now, the way if we learn the way simple pshat, the way Rashi learned, the davar acher here means both. They found the meat of a chazah that's a mitzvah, then it's difficult, and it was mamash treif. Then why was Mazutra eating it? Why was he giving it? Why was Rashi giving it to him unless he saw that there was mamash sakonos nefashos. The craving, it must be there was sakonos nefashos, so therefore he offered him a piece of the tray. But if you learn another way, that davar acher just means teras, because we have many times the Gemara davar acher is we had more of some perik. The davar acher just means teras on its own. Whatever the food is, some kind of leprosy on the food, then it doesn't necessarily have to be there as tray. But Rashi clearly learned that davar acher here means basar, so chazer mitzvah. So there was mamish chazer. It must be that his life was online. Anyway, he said to the police, did you check over here? Actually, they checked it out. They checked it out, and Taka found that there was tzaras there. So that was Ashi just made a miracle that there was tzaras there. My time was sometimes he said, why did you rely on this? You told them mice with tzaras, but Amlu Chazoya saw ruach tzaras the kaporcho saw a Mazuta's face that he had some kind of like the spirit of tzaras over him, and I saw that he was very, very sick, and therefore. I realized that it must be Sharas over here. Now, but what exactly he meant is, everything about this is a nest. He's saying he noticed on Mazutra over here that he had a Sharas floating him. He knew obviously came from this meat, so therefore he knew it came from meat. That Sharas should be so effective that it happens instantaneously is also pretty miraculous. The whole story is a nest, but he tried to minimize the nest that Ashi did. But the bottom line here is if you have very strong cravings, you have to deal with it. And therefore, it's not fair for having a shamash standing there watching everybody eating and he himself is not participating. Now, the more tell the story doesn't necessarily mean it's about a yid, but the idea of craving. The Huda mother was a guy, a Roman. Who eats such a woman, I want you to marry me. She said, no. Also, what did he do? He went, iced the money. He went and bought a pomegranate. Polly, he split it open. He ate it right in front of her. Obviously, she hadn't eaten for a while. She was extremely hungry. Kol Maya did Sa'adale Balasa. So in her mouth, she began saliva began to appear. She began salivating over this, and she then swallowed it. And every time she swallowed that saliva, it was obviously bad for her. Lahavla never gave her, just tortured her. He teased her, taunted her. Ad the Zogla until she became, Rashi says, she became transparent. She began to swell out of hunger, and then this saliva that she was swallowing, and she became so transparent. Her face again, became like luminous. The safe at the end, he said to her, if I will give you menasavli, you will marry me. We already had more good condition. We had other places that if you do this kind of a thing, if you do this kind of thing, and she promises, yes, I'll marry you, it's meaningless because she only did to save her life. But anyway, that's not the issue we want to hear. The Amrullah, she said to him, yes, Azal ice the money, he brought another pomegranate. Polly, he split it open, ate before her, and again, she began to salivate, and then the saliva came up. Amrullah told her, every time saliva comes up, don't swallow it. Toif shadai. Go ahead and spit it out. Gargle and spill it out. Toif shadai. And she continued to spit out every time he took a bite, and she had new saliva. She spat it out to get it out of her system. Until they saw it come out of her, like a green little stalk, and she was cured. The Gemara is using the story to show that cravings, and you don't deal with it at all, how harmful it can be. Then the Mishnah said, well, she should make wool. That's one of the activities she does, equal to the weight of 5 sloyim in Yehuda. But sim b'tzemer in wool, yes, pishtim la, but you cannot make her to work with flax. Masnis and mani Rabbi Yehudi, who's also our Mishnah, it is Rabbi Yehuda. The time you learn Einu Koifa, you cannot force your wife of it that she should stand and respect your father. You cannot force her to respect your father. She didn't marry your father, she married you. Nor for your son, not from her, but your son from another woman. You cannot first give straw to your animal. I will kaifa leaking tablet bigger, but you can force her to give a straw before your cattle. What's the difference, your animal and your cattle? So Rashi has two pshatim. Both of them are for us, very difficult to understand. But it seems that the animals, we're talking about a horse and a donkey, they were very lustful. And what do you call it? And therefore, they can be so lustful that if she gets involved, who knows what's going to happen between them? I guess bestiality was quite rife as they had more about Zora. And but Bekrai are not these kind of animals, much more tame animals who are not so lustful. Or Rashi says another differences between the male animals and female animals. The female animals she can deal with because nothing's going to happen, but male animals she can't because of bestiality or possibility. Rabbi Yehuda says, also not flax, but has a pair. Flax gives off a terrible odor from her mouth, so she shouldn't be involved in that. Also, she has to continually stretch out the linen, and it will cause her, her lips to swell. Because she has to continuously, put a finger in her mouth, take some saliva to be able to stretch out those strings. The only talking about linen made out of Rome, and that's what she shouldn't be doing. Rabbi Lezer says, I feel like even 100 shvachas, she should be active. And usually, not always, but usually when we have the Malkiya saying something, then we want to make a distinction between Malkiyoi and Malkaya. So, Malkiya, the name of Rabbi Abba, the halacha like Rabbi Lezer. That no matter how many maids they have, she should be doing something, she should be productive. That the following argument, shpud, the argument when it comes to shpud, which is we had a Gemara that the spit after you finish with the meat is muktzah, but you're allowed to tilt on the outside to not moving, even though it's muktzah. If you push it, move it away in a normal way, not normal way, you put it in the corners, all right. Shvachas, which is right in according to Rabbi Lezer, no matter how many shvachas you have, we need the woman to be a bit industrious, otherwise she can, if she has plenty of spare time in her hand, it can lead to zimmer and gumas that said you need 2 hairs to reach puberty, but even if you have no follicles, but you just have the holes, that's good enough. That was a malkayoy. The other 3 cases of beloitis, that a barber, you shouldn't cut the hair of a goybig and leave them with that circle around the head because that's how they worship Avodah Zarah. If you're going to give them a haircut, stop a few finger lengths width before. Or A for mikla, putting a hot ashes on your hand, whatever it is. The problem is that after you take the ashes off, it leaves a permanent mark. It looks like a tattoo, which you're not allowed to in the Torah to make a tattoo. And Gvina, the cheese of a goy, why the cheese of a goy is forbidden? Because they used to swear on the outside with lard, is that's a malkaya. Rav Papa says, so that's what he said, that's the rule. Rav Papa says, masnisin masnita, anything that comes from a Mishnah or Braisa, that's a malkaya. That's a malkaya. Because a malkaya is like a king. And therefore a Mishnah and a Masnita, they're the kings. And Shmaita, if it's merely a Gemara, is Rav Malkayoy, is Malkayoy. Simonot, remember, Masnita, Malkasa, Mishnah Braisa, I can say the kings because the Gemara can't argue with the Mishnah Braisa. America can say whatever he wants. It's the Mishnah Braisa that rejects, as we had many times, that murder them would have to reluctantly withdraw his opinion and comply with that Braisa. My benai, what's the difference? The rule is Mishnah versus Gemara, or just a rule we said before. The difference would be shvachas. Who said the law of shvachas? Because the law of shvachas here comes from the Mishnah, and so where does it fit in? According to Papa, it fits into Malkayoy, and according to what do you call it? The other one, it's Malkayo. That's the difference. Rashbag says that if you tell her, I don't want you to have any pledge, I don't want you to do any formal work whatsoever, give her a psu and let her go because she'll make her crazy. What's the difference of making zima or making crazy? I mean, they're both saying the same thing. Haina Tanakam, they saying the same thing. Zima, no. Equal, the difference would be the metaltala beguraisa, kitnaisa. What happens if she likes pets and she plays with little puppies? Why don't you play little puppies? So that she, on the one hand, she's keeping herself busy. so they won't go crazy. On the other hand, it's not being productive, and therefore still a possibility of zima. And the other one is vinidarshir. Nidarshir, Rashi says, is the game. She plays a game called ishkakish, and in Pachad Yitzchak, that's written by this Italian big Talmud Chacham who made the first encyclopedia way before encyclopedia, about 400 years ago. It's called Pachad Yitzchak. He did it single-handedly every term, and he brought all the Makaris and Medrash Gemara, unbelievable, fascinating sefer. And in Pachad Yitzchak, he wants to bring Ishkakish. He brings different opinions, if my memory is already right, as to what the game is. But he first says it might be chess. Then he brings other opinions, it might be other games. But if it's chess, that means already in the times of the Gemara, they were playing chess, or the times of the Mishnah already, because that's the difference between Rav Shimon Gamliel and Tanna Kama. If you're playing chess, not being productive, but you're not wasting your time. Okay. So women used to play chess in those days. Mishnah. A man says to wife, I will not have tashna. We learned before that, the three things in the Torah, one of them is that you have relations. And if he says, I don't want to, then he's going against the Torah that tonight doesn't work. But here he made a neder on himself that I will not have any tashmish with my wife. And the question is, does he have to divorce or not? And on yourself, you can make nedarim. On her, you can't, but on yourself, you say, look, I don't want to have any benefit from anything to do with her. So Beis Shammai says, Shtei Shabbos. We allow 2 weeks. If he made a neder for the next 2 weeks, he got angry, whatever he's going to do with you, okay, we can tolerate that. And we'll soon see, because we tolerate it in other cases, so we'll tolerate it here as well. Otherwise, if it's any longer than that, he has to divorce and give her a ksuva, pay her out. Beis Hillel says, Shabbos Achaz is just 1 week. We allow, and that's it. Talmidim, the Gemara explained what's the basis of their argument. Talmidim, students, students can go to learn Torah without permission of their wives. 30 days, up to 30 days, they can leave their home without even asking their wife permission, and for 30 days. We'll talk about that in tomorrow's Gemara as well. Somebody who is a worker, Shabbos Achas. So for Talmidim up to 30 days, but a worker has up to a week to leave without permission. When we the Torah said that a husband has a conjugal obligation to his wife. So it depends who you are. Hatayolim, people who have free time, we'll see later who we're talking about the Becholim every single day, obligated to have a relationship with the wife. Poilim, people who work, so they're tired, twice a week. Hachamori, people who travel with donkeys, so they don't go very far than Achaz once a week. Hagamolim, people who travel with camel, they go further distances than Achaz, especially once a month they have to be home. Hasafonim, salesmen, people who travel on boats and ships, sailors, Achaz l'shisha chadoshim, once every 6 months. Divir Rabbi Lezer. Interesting, the Mishnah completely omits Talmidei Chachamim, which we do once a week Friday night. The Mishnah omits that. So we're talking about within workers, the different categories of workers. Second one, what's a lot of Beis Shammai? 2 weeks. Gamri, we learn out meyaledis. We learn out from a woman who gives birth. If you give birth to a girl, the first 2 weeks she's asad. So, all the dam she sees is asad. So we see that the maximum that we allow a husband and wife to be separated is 2 weeks, and that's it. The cave, and that's what we learn from. Beis Hillel says, Gamri Meled, he said you learn from a bagel, which is only 1 week. So the Gemara Beis Hillel, I mean, even when we learn the cave, why don't you learn from a Yeled Zoch? The fact is, if you gave birth to the cave, it's 2 weeks separated. So why Beis Hillel should agree with Beis Shammai that up to 2 weeks we can tolerate? You're right. If we learn from a woman who gave birth, you're right. But Beis Hillel, Hill learns on Nida 7 days. Before the Chacham came along, Zedek said the Bnei Yisrael were machmir. Prior to that, Nida was merely 7 days, and that's it. So you make a neder, we tolerate up to 7 days. Why does Hill learn from a Nida, and why does Shammai learn from a Yeledis? Things which are common from things which are common. Now, Rashi says, I guess it's that commentary in life in those days. Hopefully it's only those days, that is so common for men to be angry. Rashi says, people get angry in their wives and make these kind of dorim, seems it was a very common thing. And therefore it was common, and a woman coming in is very common every month. But giving birth is not so common. Anything which he was involved in as well. You learn from something he's involved in as well. Having a child is obviously with a husband, and therefore and having tashmish is the husband. So those two things learn from each other because they both have to do with him. Omar Rav says that machleki, the whole machleki is mefarish should be clearly spelled out 2 weeks or 1 week. Abel Bistam, he doesn't spell out a time. He just says, I said also, if he is not mataned, it'll be forever. And how do we know that he will be mataned? Then we don't wait immediately. That's the the anguish that she has, and because he didn't set a deadline, a timeline, therefore he has to set her free and give her a ksuva. Shmuel said, I feel Bistam, even Stam. Nami Yam, you still wait a week or 2 weeks according to Hillel Shammai. And why? Shema Yimata Pesach, that maybe he'll find an opening for his nether. Says that's the argument of plea. We already have this. Essentially, we have this argument already elsewhere now, and we learned Hamad is history. Someone makes a nether against his wife. If somebody says to his wife, I don't want you to have any benefit from me. Until 30 days, until 30 days, he can set up a third party to provide for anything else. And we say, it's not really his shliach or anything else, and that's this is all right. But as long as 30 days, it's not normal, and therefore he has to give her a ksuva. And give her a get. Only if he clearly said 30 days, do we wait 30 days? But if he doesn't give any timetable, straight away he has to divorce or give her a ksuva. And the shul says the same idea. I feel wait the 30 days. Maybe we'll find an opening to that. So the principle of the argument is the same. Because he says if we only in this case over here where the husband says, I won't have any attachments with me, okay, because he can't have a third party at all. So maybe Rav says, that's what Rav says, what Brady have. The moment he said it, you can't have a relationship anymore, she should go free. In the case of when it comes to food, there is an option. During those 30 days, she's still taken care of, but through a third party. Then then maybe he's let's give some time. Maybe he'll find a way out of his nether. Maybe he'll have charata, he'll find a pesach, an opening, and if they can live life normally. For Shalom Bayis, why destroy it straight away? So therefore he says, we need to tell you that Rav holds that even there, if there's no timetable, she's going to sugar, and therefore you have to set it free. You have to give her a ksuva straight away and divorce. But even by if you only knew the case over there, I would say only the Ishmael over here, and he agrees to Rav. In our case over here, it's impossible to live like this, and you're not going to wait 2 weeks. If he says I don't have any attachment, denies attachment, they should divorce straight away. Okay, we'll stop over here and continue tomorrow. Mitzvah Hashem. Okay, have a good day, everybody.
Just a simple question: if someone's a sailor and they come home